Good morning. Could you please state your name for the record, both first and last, and spell both?
Greg Leatherberry, GregLeatherberry.
How are you employed?
I'm a deputy sheriff with the Dane County Sheriff's Office.
And were you employed as such in July of 2021?
Yes, I was.
And what unit of the Dane County Sheriff's Office do you belong to?
I'm currently assigned to the crime scene unit, where I've been working for the past 22 years. I've been a deputy sheriff with the Dane County Sheriff's Office for 29 years.
And I'm going to show you, Deputy, what has been marked as Exhibit 175. How would you identify Exhibit 175?
This is my CV.
Okay. And for those that are not in the scientific community, that's like a resume.
That is correct, yes.
But it has all your trainings. And can you just name a few of the trainings that you have participated in?
I've participated in the Basic Recruit Academy, the jail school. From there, I went on to patrol and ultimately ended up in the crime scene unit, where I've received numerous hours of training. I've received training at Fox Valley Technical College for the 2-week evidence tech program. I have attended the Wisconsin State Death Investigation School, the 2-week program at Green Lake. I have attended the Death Investigation School at Northwestern University. I've attended the blood-stain pattern analysis training at the BCA in Minnesota, which is the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I've had fingerprint training from the FBI, and there's numerous more schools as well.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 175 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
It is received.
Part of your job working for the Dane County Sheriff's Office Crime Scene Unit, do you also work in cooperation with the Crime Scene Unit from the Department of Justice?
That is correct, yes, I do.
And do you also work in concert with the Wisconsin State Crime Lab?
Yes.
How does working in cooperation with those departments assist you in your job duties?
Well, they have subject matter experts that have more extensive training in particular disciplines that can assist us when it comes to processing a scene or to do further analysis of evidence that we collect. And those items that get submitted to the crime lab are items that they would do the analysis on that we request for them to do.
In the midst of this case, were you asked by the fingerprint expert at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to get more complete or better fingerprints from Mr. Halderson?
Yes, there was a request for additional fingerprints. When a person is typically booked into the jail, the fingerprints are obtained on everybody that is booked in. And those are just basic fingerprints. Sometimes they need what they refer to as major case prints. And the major case prints would include additional areas of the finger that contain friction ridge that is normally not collected during the booking process.
So basically those major case prints would include the sides of each finger.
That is correct.
Or the rolling print.
That is correct.
And for the record, do you see the person whose fingerprints you collected in the courtroom?
I'll ask before the witness answers for everyone outside of the jury box to lower their mask for a few moments so that the witness can see everyone's face. Go ahead and replace your masks, please.
Do you see Chandler Halderson?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify him by where he's seated and perhaps the color of his shirt?
He is seated to the table to my right. He's wearing a dark sports coat and appears to be a dark tie with a light colored shirt.
I would ask the record to reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
It shall.
Could you please identify what is marked as Exhibit 362?
These are fingerprints that were obtained during a search warrant of Mr. Halderson.
And those are the prints that you collected?
Yes, they are.
And these are those rolling prints?
Correct.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 362 into evidence.
No objection.
They are received.
Deputy, what was your primary task in this investigation?
Well, the primary task in this investigation is the evaluation of the crime scene, the documentation of the crime scene, the collection of the evidence, and the preservation of the evidence so that could be later tested if need be.
And specifically, were you basically in charge of the search at the 4595 Oak Springs Circle address in Dane County, Wisconsin?
Yes, I was.
Just generally, how do you process a crime scene such as a complete single-family home?
Well, the process of the crime scene, although it may sound simple, is pretty complex, and it takes a number of different things for that to be accomplished. And one person obviously cannot do that all by themselves. And I had significant help from Deputy James Plenty and Deputy Eric Schneider, as well as members of this Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory Field Response and the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigations Arson Response Unit.
What's the first thing you do when you enter a home to begin a search?
Well, the first thing is we're taking photographs and we're evaluating and getting a better understanding as to what had occurred at the scene.
I think you described to me that at first you guys walk around quiet.
That is correct.
Tell us about that.
What I like to do, and has worked for me over the years, I learned this from my predecessor, that when we go into the crime scene, whether I'm with my partner Jim Plenty or with Eric Schneider, that we take everything in. We take our notes in with us, but when I say we take everything is, we don't talk to each other. We evaluate the entire scene, and we don't talk to each other because we don't want to taint each other's mind. Each person may see things a little bit differently, so I found it's best that we walk through the scene, evaluate the scene, and then after we've done a complete walkthrough of the scene and we've done our evaluation, then we talk amongst each other. And we're not only getting understanding as to what each other has seen, but we're also forming a game plan as to how we were going to process this thing and what additional resources we may need to call in.
So that first time that you guys walk through in silence helps you map out a game plan for
That is correct.
a specific scene.
And I've referred to it as like a golden hour. It takes a significant amount of time to go through a house as large as that.
And you said you photograph the whole area.
That is correct.
Now, let me ask you, when you guys are walking around, do you wear anything special to assist you?
Oh, absolutely. We're getting an understanding as to what has occurred at the scene, and by doing so, we have to walk throughout the scene. So we wear booties and we wear gloves. In addition, obviously, we would have flashlights to help us look in areas to illuminate that aren't well lit. And it doesn't matter if there's lights in the room or not, we still would have our flashlights with us.
And you're doing your best to take in the scene without potentially disturbing it.
Correct. We refer to that as minimizing contamination. No matter what you try to do, you are going to contaminate the scene by entering and walking around. There's no way about it. We cannot float through space. But we minimize the contamination. So it does take a while for us to get through the scene. It is a process. It's a systematic approach. You just can't be walking haphazard through the scene. Again, we're relying on that scene to get us information, so we have to take everything in.
All right, and Deputy, I'm going to show you some exhibits. And I'm going to have you briefly look through them. And these are exhibits 176 through 302, as well as 551 and 552. Just going to have you briefly peruse those. Just let me know when you're finished. And if I could have HDMI left, I have it on a blink. And sorry. As a group deputy, how would you describe the photos, the exhibits that are up there?
These are photographs of the interior of 4595 Oak Springs Circle in the village of Windsor, Wisconsin.
And as exhibits, do they appear to be true and accurate depictions of what you observed on the scene?
Yes, they are.
All right, so at this time I would move exhibits 176 through 193, 195 through 205, 204 through 218, 220 through 225, 227 through 248, 252 through 278, 292 through 302, as well as 551 and 552, and 310 through 312 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Those are all received and may be published.
Okay. All right. So Deputy, just to begin with, how would you describe the Halderson home just in general?
I would describe the overall condition of the house to be half finished and half in state of repair. It appeared to be some renovations occurring inside of the residence, and they were still living within the house, so then there were areas that were completed with the renovations.
Did that pose any challenges to you and your team during the search?
Nothing significant, no.
Okay. All right, and Exhibit 176. How would you describe Exhibit 176?
Exhibit 176 is a photograph of the living room, which I call on the main level of the residence. And we are looking to the west. In the far left corner, there's the entrance door to the residence that is just above grade. Directly in the middle of the photo, there's a set of stairs that ascend up to the upper level. The stairs go up to what I refer to as the bedroom level. The house is of a tri-level construction, so then there'll be an area that descends to the lower living room, family room area, and then yet again, there'll be a basement as well.
Could I see counsel with the
Yes, absolutely.
sidebar for a brief moment?
All right, and Exhibit 178. What is Exhibit 178?
That is a photograph of the west wall of the same room. I'm sorry, that is the east wall of the same room that we were just in. We're just looking at the fireplace. That is a gas-sealed fireplace.
And a fireplace becomes significant in this case.
Yes, it does.
Is this the fireplace that became of any significance?
No, it is not.
Just in general, did the living room have any significant evidentiary value?
No, I did not.
Moving on, what does Exhibit 177 display?
Exhibit 177 is a photograph in the same living room. It is from the southeast corner, and now we're able to look out towards the north, and there's the dining room.
And this is actually Exhibit 9, an exhibit that we've seen earlier. But what does Exhibit 9 display?
This is a photograph of the dining room, and now we're able to see a portion of the kitchen that is to the northwest of this room.
And again, did the dining room have any significant evidentiary value to your investigation?
No, it did not.
What is Exhibit 179?
179 is a photograph that is taken from the doorway between the living room and the kitchen. This is the kitchen area. So standing at this doorway and looking to the north, we can see an exit door on the north side. And directly behind me, or opposing this, would be the entrance to the residence.
So that door there, does that go into the backyard or to somewhere else?
That opens up into the backyard. There's a set of stairs that descend down to the west.
Okay. All right. Was there anything really of note in your investigation in the kitchen?
No, there was not.
Exhibit 180, what is seen there?
This is the stairwell leading up to the second level, or the bedroom level, and to the left in this photograph would be the front door, and then to the right would be to the kitchen.
And there's some blue tape, it appears, above a light switch in Exhibit 180. Was that there when you arrived on scene, or is that part of your...
All of these photographs are how we found the scene.
Okay.
This is an initial walkthrough. We have not done anything at this point. So that is not from us. That was artifact from whoever had placed that there previously.
Okay. How would you describe 181?
181 is a photograph at the top of the stairs facing to the west. We can see an open door in the right portion of the photograph. And then there are two doors to the left on the left side of this. What you can't see around to the right is another door to a bathroom. And then if you were to button hook around the corner to the right in this photograph, there's another bedroom.
Exhibit 182, how would you describe it?
This is a photograph of the first room on the left that I referred to in the previous photograph. This is the doorway that opens up into the laundry room. This room appears to be under renovation. There's a lot of supplies in this room for insulation. There's some flooring in this room as well. And it appears that the plywood flooring on the floor has been put down as part of the renovation.
183, please describe it.
This is the same laundry room. This would be in the southwest corner of the laundry room. It appears to be a makeshift area where one would have their toiletry items and stuff that you would normally find in a bathroom.
184, more the same there.
That is correct, yes.
185, just a different view.
That is correct, yes.
186.
This is a photograph of a toothbrush that was located on the makeshift vanity, if you will, that was later collected as evidence.
And why was this toothbrush head collected?
The toothbrush was collected as a DNA source for what we believe to be Krista Halderson. Most of the items that were in that area were consistent with what a woman would have in their bathroom area. So we could assume that it was from Krista Halderson.
And Krista was, in fact, the only female residing at that location.
To my knowledge, that is correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 194. No need to glove up. I'm not going to ask you to open it. But can you tell from stickers from your office and perhaps initials what Exhibit 194 is?
Exhibit 194 has been marked with evidence number 41748. It is an electric toothbrush head that was collected and had subsequently gone and been submitted to the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory, as their sticker is affixed on here as well.
Okay. I would move Exhibit 194 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
What does Exhibit 187 display?
187 is a photograph of the floor in the laundry room area. Specifically, we can see there are two alpha markers on the floor that have been placed by items of evidence.
And of course, I'm the one who arranged the photos. So these photos were taken after you had put down some placards.
That is correct.
And what is Exhibit 188?
Exhibit 188 is a reddish-brown stain that has been marked with the letter A in the laundry room on the floor.
189, the same but with the letter B?
That is correct.
What does Exhibit 190 display?
190 is a photograph in that same laundry room. This is, if you were to break the room in half, if you will, there was a washer and dryer in the previous photographs. There's a wall that separates the room. And there's a vacuum cleaner in this photograph, as well as some insulation and some flooring boards, is what it appears to be.
191.
This is the vacuum cleaner that I collected from the bathroom.
And why was the vacuum cleaner collected?
During the evaluation portion of the processing of the crime scene, I identified that there was blood on the side of the vacuum cleaner. And I had further tested that blood with phenolphthalein, which gives us a presumptive positive for blood. Under the appearance, they appeared to be blood, but we need to confirm those stains, so we confirmed those stains with phenolphthalein. Then I use a subsequent test yet again, and it's called the Hexagon Obti test. This test differentiates between human and non-human blood. And that test was positive.
For human blood or non-human blood?
Positive for human blood.
So the first test you do is phenolphthalein, and is that just like a chemical that you apply to a swab or something else?
Correct. So we take a swab and we put a drop of sterile water on the swab to collect a portion of that stain, and then we use the phenolphthalein solution, placing a drop onto the swab, followed by another chemical on top of that, and when it turns to a bright purple color almost instantly, that's an indicator that the presence of blood.
And then you perform a second test to say,
Correct.
is this
No, we don't-
human or is this something else?
Correct. No, we don't do that on every stain that we collect. We don't do the second test. With the second test differentiates between human and non-human blood.
And why do you sometimes not do the second test?
It depends if, if it's in an area where there's a concentration of stains, and they can all potentially be from the same source. It is a tool that we utilize in order to be more effective in getting evidence tested at the crime lab. We're limited in the number of items that we can submit to the crime lab, but we cannot submit everything that we collect. So this is a screening tool that we utilize in order to help us look at the best probative value of that piece of evidence. So if we collect a stain, but we don't know what it is, we basically could be wasting somebody's time in the crime lab. Whereas if we're able to do the phenolphthalein tests followed by the Hexagon Obti test, then we're basically utilizing the resources to the best of our ability.
Moving on to Exhibit 192. What is Exhibit 192?
This is the side of the vacuum cleaner that was in that same laundry room. It's marked with letter E.
193.
Is the same photograph. We put numerical markers in there indicating the individual stains that were collected from the side of the vacuum cleaner.
Now, is it fair to say when you are looking at this scene, you don't necessarily know everything else that's occurring in the investigation? Is that fair?
That is fair. However, we do rely on communication. The success of any investigation when it relates to the crime scene investigators and the detectives involves communication. We are guided by information that we are getting from them, and additionally, we are providing information outside of the scene because they don't know everything that's going on inside the scene, just like we don't know everything that's happening outside of the scene.
And is it fair to say that sometimes you might think something is evidence of something and then learn another fact later on and it has an innocent explanation?
Absolutely.
Exhibit 10, please describe Exhibit 10 for the jury.
Exhibit 10 is a photograph of the bedroom that would be in the southwest corner of the bedroom level. This would be the doorway that was beyond the laundry room door on the same side of that hallway. Looking in here, this is the bedroom of Chandler Halderson.
Exhibit 11, another view of Mr. Halderson's bedroom.
Correct. This is a view from the entrance facing to the north, to the west and to the southwest.
Could you describe Exhibit 195?
This is the bedroom of Bart and Krista Haldersons. This is in the northwest corner of the residence on the bedroom level.
And was there much that you found in their bedroom that was of evidentiary value to you?
No, there was not.
How would you describe Exhibit 196?
Exhibit 196 is a photograph of what I would call a spare bedroom. This would be the bedroom that I refer to as button hooking around the corner. So this, on the bedroom level, this would be in the northeast corner.
And again, was there much evidence collected from this room?
No, there was not.
Describe Exhibit, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put in the 551, please.
Exhibit 551 is a photograph of the room that is between the bedroom of Bart and Krista Haldersons in the northwest corner, and the previous photo of that spare bedroom. This room is between the two of them, so the wall to the right would butt up against the wall of that spare bedroom. This is a bathroom that is under renovation.
And this is Exhibit 552. Why'd you take this picture?
Well, I had previously been out to the crime scene at Irwin Road and was aware that there was a Rubbermaid rolling storage garbage type bin that was at that scene. And I saw that this cover was consistent with a cover that would fit that type of rolling garbage bin. Mind you, this photograph was taken after the initial walkthrough, and I had also saw in the garage area there is another refuse container consistent with appearance of the same Rubbermaid rolling storage garbage bin.
And the exhibits we've looked at, is that the entire bedroom level? Are there any more rooms left?
There are no more rooms on that level. There is a attic crawl space above the entrance to the bathroom.
And did you search that?
That was searched as well.
Anything of any evidentiary value found in the attic crawl space?
No, there was not.
Exhibit 197, what is Exhibit 197?
Exhibit 197 is the doorway opening to the bathroom. This is on the family room / office level. Also located on this same level would be access to the garage. So this level is at grade.
Is this the same level as the kitchen and dining room?
No, it is not. This is down one level. So we enter into the house through the front door, and that is the main level, if you will. And we ascend up the stairs to the left or to the west, and that's the bedroom level. As I spoke earlier of the photograph of the back door to the kitchen, and I referred to the front door being directly behind me. If I was to turn to the left and look down, I would have another set of stairs that would descend down into the family room, office, and garage level.
Exhibit 16, how would you describe Exhibit 16?
This is a photograph of the shower that's within the bathroom.
Anything of note at all in the bathroom?
In the bathroom, there were stains that were blood stains that were on the baseboard.
And you called them blood. Does that mean you did the phenolphthalein test?
I did not do the phenolphthalein test on those. Crime scene investigator, Deputy Jim Plenty, did the test on those.
And you guys often rely on each other's work, being partners?
Yes, we do.
Moving on to Exhibit 546. Could you please describe Exhibit 546?
Exhibit 546 is a photograph of what I refer to as the office area. As you can see in the near portion on the left side of this image, there is a wall. If we were standing at that wall and went around the corner, we would be looking straight at the entrance to the bathroom. So the bathroom is just to the left and beyond this office area.
Okay. And is this a photo, if you know, before you search the area and move things around, after, or something else?
This photograph was taken prior to any processing or anything being done.
And there was some items of note found in this area. Is that fair to say?
That is correct, yes.
And in collecting and photographing, is it fair to say you moved some of the paperwork?
Yes.
Okay. So in Exhibit 543, there appears, how would you describe Exhibit 543?
Exhibit 543 is a stack of papers and binders that were under the monitor that were on the desk.
Okay. And that's before you moved items again?
That is correct.
Okay. And then 198, how would you describe Exhibit 198?
These were photographs that were taken after the search of this area.
Okay. And Exhibit 543, there's an item there circled. Is that fair to say?
That is correct. It's a piece of paper that had writings on it and appeared to me to be consistent with access codes or passwords. Again, not knowing the relevance or importance of it, we simply just photographed it.
And to photograph it, you moved it?
That is correct, yes.
And that's Exhibit 198?
Yes.
I'm going to approach you with Exhibit 203. What is Exhibit 203?
Exhibit 203 is the actual documents that I had photographed. They're basically written in pen and pencil. There's some typed login information is what I refer to them as.
So basically every IT person's worst nightmare, a list of passwords.
Absolutely.
And can you just look at this briefly? And before some of them, it says you, like username. Is that fair to say? There's a U before.
Yes, it appears to have a U, which I would assume would be username, and then below it, there's a P, which I would assume to be password.
And I just want you to look roughly how many passwords are on these sheets of paper in Exhibit 203. There's a back.
There's a back. I would suggest that there is no less than 45 to 50, as some of them appear to have been crossed out, and there are additional writings around the outside border of this document as well.
And is Exhibit 203 in the same or substantially same condition as it was when you collected it from the Halderson desk?
Yes, it is. Although I was not the person that collected it, I was present at the time that it was collected.
Fair enough. At this time, I would move Exhibit 203 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Based on the paperwork you went through and the totality of the desk area, could you tell whose desk it was?
There was a computer that was there. It was had a business card on it for a financial company in Middleton, and I came to the conclusion that that was the desk and office area for Bart Halderson.
And were you made aware during the investigation that he had been working from home like many people during 2021?
Yes, I was. I was aware of that.
And Exhibit 546, what is the red circled area in 546?
I believe that's around the documents that were collected.
And there's kind of one highlighted there in a screenshot from 543, which again was the video from the home that was previously played for the jury. Is that a fair description?
Yes.
And did you specifically move a document there, that document to be on top of the keyboard to photograph it?
I did not specifically move that, although it was moved there so that it could be photographed, yes.
Sure, by one of the other members of the crime scene.
That is correct.
And is that common to move items to aid in photography?
Absolutely.
But you are sure to document where it originally was first, is that fair?
That is correct as well.
Exhibit 201, is that a further picture of that document?
Yes, it is.
Just the top page, right? Okay. Deputy, I'm going to approach you with Exhibit 202. How would you describe Exhibit 202?
Exhibit 202 is the actual document that was previously shown on the screen, the photograph. It's an email which appears to be from Krista Halderson to a person named Bart. And the subject matter says Madison College. And the backside, it looks like a letter to Mr. Chandler Halderson from Citizens Bank.
And does this appear to be in the same condition as you saw it in the home?
Yes, it is.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 202 into evidence.
Actually, Your Honor, can we approach?
Of course.
So is 202 admitted?
Over objection, the evidence is received into evidence,
And I would ask permission to publish to the jury.
and you may.
All right. I would actually like to pass this one around if that's okay. Deputy, thank you for waiting. How would you describe it, Exhibit 204?
Exhibit 204 is a photograph specific to the gray and white object, which is a Google Play device.
Is it the Google version of an Alexa, basically?
That is my understanding, correct, yes.
I believe it's called a Google Nest.
That is correct, yes.
Why was this picture taken?
Well, in the overall totality of everything, I saw that all of the cords were plugged into one central area. However, the cord that would plug into the outlet to power all of these was unplugged. So there was no power to the desk, if you will, which is where a number of these items were getting the electricity from.
Were there any other Google Nests throughout the home?
Yes, there was. In the main entry-level living room, when you enter in through the front door, there was a Google device on the north wall of the living room. That Google device was unplugged. There was also a Google device that was located in the basement area, and that Google device was also unplugged.
Was that significant to you at all?
It was. It drew attention because I recalled a previous case out of the state of Arkansas where there was a motion in a trial there to attempt to get any information that listening device could have recorded, not just what was said when the wake-up word is used. So I thought it might have had some significance. That's why I photographed it.
And one additional question about the desk area. Was there a phone charger located on the desk area?
Yes, there was a phone charger. And if I recall, it was for like an iPhone.
Okay. Judge, this might be a good lunch stopping point.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we will return at 1 o'clock, which gives you an hour and 10 minutes. I know there's some things that we will take care of in your absence. As always, don't spend any time while you're away from this room discussing this case with anyone or overhearing any discussions or taking any steps purposely, or avoid any steps unintentionally of being exposed to any information about the case. And we'll see everyone at 1 o'clock.
All right, to the jury.
No more business. All right. And Deputy, could you please describe for the jury what Exhibit 205 is?
Exhibit 205 is a photograph taken from the east side of the office level, if you will, facing towards the west. It is the doorway that leads out into the garage area.
Okay. And what is Exhibit 25?
This is a photograph of the interior of the garage. The door that was in the previous photograph would be adjacent to the two refuse containers that are in the left portion of that image.
And are the vehicles that are in the garage, the Volvo belonging to Krista Halderson and the Subaru belonging to Bart Halderson?
That is correct, yes.
What is Exhibit 207 a picture of?
Exhibit 207 is a photograph that's depicting the Rubbermaid wheeled refuse container.
And is that container consistent with the container found in the woods at the Irwin Drive property?
This is the container that I referred to earlier in my testimony when we were speaking to the lid that was in the bathroom on the bedroom level that was under construction. This is the lid with the refuse container, and it's consistent with the same type of refuse container that was found in the woods out on Irwin property.
And I'm sorry, part of your testimony might be a little confusing. Is this the same lid that was upstairs in the bathroom?
No, it is not the same lid. This is the lid that goes with this container. There are two lids, then there would be two lids within that side of the house.
Okay. Exhibit 208, what is that a picture of?
This is a photograph depicting the two refuse containers that are provided by a municipality for picking up of waste. One is a recycle bin with the blue lid, and the other one is the trash container.
And did you test or perform any evidentiary test on any of these garbage cans?
I did. On the handle of the garbage can, there was reddish brown stain. There's also reddish brown stains on the inside of the container. The stain that was on the handle was tested with phenolphthalein, which was presumptive positive, and then followed up with the Hexagon Obti test, which was also positive for human blood.
Could you describe Exhibit 209 for the jury?
This is a photograph of the interior side of the west wall of the garage. This would be in the southwest corner. In this image, there is a placard with the number 7 that is indicating that the metal framed gray basket that is hanging and the items that are inside of that basket.
And the 7 was put there by police?
Yes, I put that there.
Okay. And Exhibit 210, what does 210 show?
Exhibit 210 shows another photograph of the same bin. However, the first container that was on top of it has been removed to expose a couple lengths of rope. You see a length of rope that is black in color, and there's also a length of rope that is orange in color.
And why did you note the rope?
The black rope is consistent in appearance with the rope that was around the torso of the deceased that was located on the Irwin Road property.
211, again, just a close-up of that rope.
It's showing the cut end of that rope.
Okay. And if you want to glove up. Deputy, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 279. Exhibit 279, does it have a sticker from your department with a label?
Yes, it does. It is a evidence ID number 41887, and it's the black rope from the garage basket.
Okay. I'd ask that you open up the bag. State will move Exhibit 279 into evidence.
Any objection? It is received. It may be shown.
And if you just want to hold that up, maybe stand up and hold it up for the jury. Exhibit 279. Was what appears like tape, was that present when you collected it?
No, it was not.
Is that something done by the crime lab?
That was done by myself.
Okay,
in
why?
preparation. It was done by myself in preparation for submitting the cut end to the state crime laboratory for comparison.
And specifically, what is Exhibit 280?
Exhibit 280 is a cut section from 41887, the evidence ID number.
And that is the portion of the rope that you cut and submitted, and it was submitted to the state crime lab?
That is correct.
At this point, I would move Exhibit 280 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Would you like me to?
Actually, I don't think it's a cutting from the previous rope that was seen. And then just to move in for the record, Exhibit 281, how would you describe Exhibit 281?
Exhibit 281 is an evidence bag sealed with evidence tape with evidence ID number 41993, which is the cut rope from evidence ID number 41692, which is the the rope portion that was around the torso.
And I would move Exhibit 281 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Okay, Deputy, could you describe Exhibit 222 to the jury, please?
This is a photograph, again, of the interior side of the west wall of the garage. The previous photograph would have been to the left of this on that same wall. In this photograph, we can see the window, and below the window, there are some green stakes that are leaning up against the lower left corner of that window.
Okay. 223, can you describe Exhibit 223?
In Exhibit 223, we can see those same green stakes as a reference from the previous photograph. And we can see a golf club that is against the wall. And just to the left of the black head of the golf club, there's a number indicator for an item evidence that was collected.
212, what does Exhibit 212 display?
212 is a better photograph depicting the evidence marker number 8. Number 8 is for the wooden handle that is attached to the axe head that is on the floor of the garage.
Please describe 213.
213 is a photograph of the axe that I collected from the garage.
And just to back up, this axe was kind of hidden behind some boards.
It was something that you had to look to see. I wouldn't say it was hidden. It was concealed by its placement. But if you had the right angle, you could see it was there.
Okay. All right. So Exhibit 214, can you please describe it?
Exhibit 214 is a photograph showing staining that is on the area of where the axe head and the handle of the axe come together. This red staining is consistent in appearance with that of blood. There's also some dark staining on the metal portion of the axe head itself.
Exhibit 215.
It is yet another photograph of the axe with the axe head. And again, we can see staining in the area of where the axe head and handle intersect.
Exhibit 216.
It is a photograph of the same axe, however, is the opposite side of the axe head. Again, we can see that there's some dark discoloration in the area where the sharp end of the axe would be, and there's not the same discoloration in the area of the blunt side of the axe head.
217.
217 is a photograph of the same axe, and here we're referencing the handle area, and we can see on the handle that there is dark reddish brown staining.
And 218.
218 is another photograph of that same handle. It's just more of an overview of the handle.
And if you want to glove up, Detective. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 219. What is Exhibit 219?
Exhibit 219 is the axe that I had collected from the garage.
And there's various stickers. One of these stickers says biohazard. Why is that on there?
There's a biohazard sticker on there, again, because of the reddish brown staining. The reddish brown staining that is on the axe is human blood. I tested it with the phenolphthalein test, the presumptive positive. I then followed with the Hexagon Obti test to determine if it's human blood or not, and the test came back positive for human blood.
Deputy, would you please open up Exhibit 219? And before you take it out, does Exhibit 219 appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as when you collected it?
It is, however, there's a lot of purple dye staining that is on there.
Sure, from fingerprint testing.
That would be consistent with testing for fingerprints.
At this point, and it was sent to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab for a plethora of tests.
Yes, it was.
All right. I would move Exhibit 219 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
All right. Deputy, could you please pick up Exhibit 219 and maybe walk back and forth besides the jury and show them Exhibit 219? If you would just put 219 back into the box. Thank you, sir. Exhibit 223. Could you describe Exhibit 223?
Exhibit 223 is, again, a photograph in that same area where the axe was. It's depicting the boards that are all standing on edge and leaning up against the interior side of the west wall of the garage.
How would you describe Exhibit 224?
Exhibit 224 is referred to as a bow saw, or handle for a bow saw, that is behind the boards. This would have been just to the south of where the axe was, or to the left in the previous photograph.
And it's kind of behind some boards.
Yes, it is.
How would you describe Exhibit 225?
Exhibit 225 is the one end of the bow saw. When I say it's a bow saw, it would normally have a saw blade attached. However, the saw blade on this particular bow saw is absent. However, there is a small fragment or a piece of a broken saw that is attached to the end of the bow saw, and that would be in the area where that silver round button looking area is.
Okay. If you want to put on some gloves, the big one. Deputy, I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 226. From the stickers, can you describe what 226 is?
226 is the broken blade section in the bow saw under evidence ID number 42202.
Okay. Could you please open and visually examine 226, please? And does 226 appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as when you or a member of your team collected it?
It does, however, the end of the saw blade is no longer attached to the end of it.
Is it in a separate container?
Yes.
Okay. And again, that was sent for fracture match at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab?
Yes, it was.
Okay. This time I would move Exhibit 226 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And Deputy, if you could display at least the major part of that saw to the jury, or both parts, yeah, to the jury. Deputy, as you return Exhibit 226, do you see a brand name on it?
I do.
What is the brand name?
It is Craftsman.
Does it have any other markings or brand?
It has what would be a number, and then it has the another number, 21IN bolt saw, indicative of 21-inch bolt saw.
And is there any marking or brand name on the blade part? Okay.
Judge, can we approach just briefly?
Sure. You may continue.
Okay. Just want to repackage 226. I'm going to leave this for a further question later. Thank you, Deputy. I'll put it on the table in a minute. Exhibit 220. How would you describe Exhibit 220?
Exhibit 220 is a photograph of a Craftsman rolling tool chest that is against the north wall of the garage on the interior side, nearest to the northwest corner.
How would you describe Exhibit 221?
This is a drawer that is in the lower section of the rolling toolbox that I had opened and photographed.
And exhibit, well, it's the same exhibit number, it just has the added circle, so 221. It appears to be zoomed in. What would you describe there?
This is a handle for a all-way handsaw with two saw blades that are linked together with a metal wire of some sort.
Okay. And in that circled area, can you read a brand name for that blade?
I can see the always saw, but I cannot see the brand on the blade itself.
I'm sorry, I meant the saw. The Alway was the brand name?
That's what I see, yes.
I'm going to show you, Deputy, what's already been marked and received as Exhibit 140. This was a tool found at the Irwin Road property. Could you please open up 140? And can you look at that saw and tell me what brand that tool is?
This is a all-way manufacturing company. It's cast into the metal handle.
So same brand at the farm, this tool, as the one in the Craftsman toolbox at the 4595 Oak Springs address.
That is correct.
Okay. If you want to put 140 back. Thank you. Exhibit 13, moving on from the garage. What room is this?
This is the family room that is on the lower level. This is the same level that the office is on, and the stairs that are depicted in the right side of the image ascend up to the main level or to the kitchen.
Could you please describe Exhibit 14?
Exhibit 14 is a overview of the family room. There's the table with the chairs. There's a fan on the table. There's a lamp on the table. There's a neck brace on the table. And in the background, you can see the stone fireplace.
Exhibit 240.
Exhibit.
Let me just ask you a question about those items on the table. Were they there when you first entered the home, or were those items that the police placed there?
This is a photograph of how we found the table at the residence prior to any work being done.
So the fan was there next to the fireplace?
On the table, correct.
Please explain Exhibit 228.
Exhibit 228 is a photograph. It's an overall photograph of the stone fireplace. We can see the fireplace insert, if you will, that is in the middle. That's the black rectangular framing that has double bifold glass doors on it. To the left, there's a storage area for kindling type wood with a bin.
Exhibit 229, what is Exhibit 229?
Exhibit 229 is a pair of work type gloves.
And again, those were there when you arrived on scene.
Correct. This is a photograph of how we found it.
How would you describe Exhibit 230?
Exhibit 230 is a photograph of the fireplace enclosure. Now, this fireplace is not a gas fireplace. This is a wood-burning fireplace. There are bifold doors on the front. We can see that there are 3 of the 4 panes of glass that are in place. The 4th pane of glass is absent. And if we look at the lower edge of the frame on the left side, we can see a portion of the glass that would normally be in that position.
Please explain Exhibit 231.
Exhibit 231 is a photograph of the same fireplace. And we can see again in the area where the glass should be, there are portions of glass still remaining. We can see that above that on the trim that for the glass enclosure, that there's a silver bare metal essentially, where the paint has bubbled up and there's a disruption on that surface.
I actually am going to go back a couple of slides. In Exhibit 240 of the items on the table, is there also a measuring tape on that table?
There is a measuring tape.
It also appears to be some hand sanitizer.
There's a hand sanitizer, and I believe there is a Target bag on the far right side.
Maybe a bottle of Advil and some sort of Star Wars memorabilia.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. 232. Could you please describe Exhibit 232?
Exhibit 232 is a photograph of the far right side or the south side of the glass enclosure. This is on the family room side or the non-fire side. It's showing the glass and streaks that are on the glass.
Do you have any thoughts as to what caused those streaks?
Objection, speculation.
think you said foundation. Sustained, you can lay foundation if you,
Sure.
if you wish.
Detective Leatherberry, have you been taught through your various trainings as a crime scene unit investigator, have you had some trainings pertaining to fire or arson?
Yes, I have. I've attended the Dane County Arson Response Initiative training and received training in fire investigations.
Additionally, have you had any training on crime scene cleanup? Or how to process potential cleanup scenarios as you process a scene that a suspect may have left behind?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Based on those training and your experience, do you have any ideas as to what caused the streaking?
It appears that an object was dragged across that surface in an attempt to clean that surface.
There appears to be a residue. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, this appears to be a smear is actually what it appears to be.
Could you describe at all what that residue, was it dry, oily, something else?
I really can't get into that because I did not do any further examinations of that.
Okay, fair enough. Exhibit 236. Could you please describe Exhibit 236?
Exhibit 236 is the middle portion of the glass that remains intact. That would be in the middle of the photograph. And we can see that there is a cloudy substance or smearing on the glass surface itself. And in the background, we can see the metal grate that is on the base of the fireplace.
Exhibit 233. What are we seeing here?
This is a photograph, a close-up photograph of the lower left portion or the north side of the fireplace enclosure. What we see here is portions of the tempered glass that still remain within the door.
And Deputy, as you examined this fireplace, both around it and inside of it, did you find glass either on the outside of it or inside of it?
There were some small pieces of glass on the interior side of the fireplace itself.
Okay. And Exhibit 234, what is the jury seeing there?
This is a photograph of the bifolding door on the north end of the fireplace enclosure. What we can see here is that the frame is still intact. There's the absence of the one piece of glass that has been broken out, and the one pane of glass is present.
And this might just be the angle of the photo, but could the door still close? It almost looks like it's off track.
Yes, the door still closed.
Okay. 241, what is the jury seeing in 241?
In 241, we are seeing the area above the glass doors that is part of the enclosure. And what we're seeing here is the paint. There's a discoloration to the paint, and there's actually bubbling that has occurred.
Any educated guesses as to what caused the bubbling?
Yes. High temperature causes the bubbling of the coating that is on that material.
Could you please describe Exhibit 242?
Exhibit 242 is a photograph of the same enclosure. Again, this is the far left side if you're looking at it, or the north end. This is above the area where the glass was broken out. What we see here is the different layers. We have the layer of coating in the area of evidence marker letter L, and then we can see some bubbling to the paint as we move further to the right in this image. And as we continue, we can see that it is actually burned away from the metal material itself and has exposed the raw metal.
And that's what you see all the way on the right side?
That is correct.
Exhibit 235, what is the jury seeing?
Exhibit 235 is a photograph with the doors open, allowing us to see into the firebox. We can see that there is a metal grate. There are 2 logs situated from left to right or north and south. There is some unburnt newsprint paper material. There is a chain and a cable on the right side of the image that is for the damper. And below the fireplace grate is a ash clean-out door.
And what is an ash clean-out door?
It's an area where the ash can be deposited and swept into when cleaning the fireplace out.
Exhibit 237.
Exhibit 237 is a photograph. It's a close-up photograph of the previous image that was depicted. What we can see in this image, and drew my attention, was the different discolorations on the grate itself. When we look at the grate, we can see that there are areas that are more gray or light in color. And then we see areas that are more dark, or they have a wet appearance to them. When I had seen this, I knew that there was something more burnt in this fireplace other than just wood-burning materials and newsprint. And I elicited the help of the ATF and the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigations Arson Response Unit to assist.
And did they in fact come to assist?
Yes, they came out on 2 occasions. They came out to do an evaluation to determine if this is something that they would be able to assist with. Special Agent Boswell from the DCI is a certified fire investigator with the State Fire Marshal's Office, which is a division of the Criminal Investigations Unit, as is William Fulton. He's with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He is also a certified fire investigator. I am not a certified fire investigator, but I knew enough that I needed to call for some help and get some assistance from the subject matter experts.
Exhibit 238, what are we seeing on Exhibit 238?
Again, this is the same fireplace grate. As we look to the far right, we can see the end of the chain hanging down. That's the damper that controls the flue, if you will. We can see the fireplace grate, the dark staining, and the wood log that's in there, the brown and white wood log that is situated in the fireplace grate.
Exhibit 239, what is the jury seeing?
Exhibit 239 is a photograph, it's a close-up photograph of the 2 logs that are situated in the grate. And we also can see the unburnt newsprint. If we look in the center of the image, we see a dark colored object. That is burnt wood that has been placed on top of the unburnt newsprint. And if we look closer to the black burnt charred wood, there's a white object on that piece of wood. That white object is later determined to be human bone.
And that determination was made by the forensic anthropologist?
Yes, Dr. Christina Figueroa Soto.
Looking at the wood, the newspaper, the bone, did you guys look at the date at all on that newspaper?
We did, and we photographed the dates of all of those. I cannot recall what those dates are.
All right. Stay tuned. All right. Exhibit 310. What is the jury seeing here?
Exhibit 310 is showing a photograph of the same fireplace. However, this was done, taken after additional chemical processing had been done within the house, as we can depict the two evidence markers on the fireplace hearth, letter O and letter B is what I believe.
Now, Exhibit 243, this starts to have placards in it.
Yes, it does.
And obviously, your department placed them there.
I placed them there.
Okay. Tell us about Exhibit 243.
Exhibit 243 is a photograph depicting evidence markers with alpha markers next to them. These are depicting individual stains of blood that I located on the dark tar-like floor. You can also see that there is a marker on the hearth, letter B, that is also from a reddish-brown stain that tested positive for blood.
Exhibit 244, please describe.
Again, this is evidence marker letter B. This is on the fireplace hearth. It is on the grout. It's within the grout that is between the two large hearth stones. And it's indicating a reddish-brown stain.
Exhibit 312.
Exhibit 312 is a photograph of the same hearth. Letter B is referenced in the previous image. If we look in this image, we see that the letter N, which is on the floor, and the letter O is placed on the hearth. Those are markers were placed there after chemical testing was done.
Exhibit 311.
Exhibit 311, again, is the same fireplace hearth. We can see the evidence markers FEDCIN on the floor, and the letter O and the letter B on the fireplace hearth.
Exhibit 245.
Exhibit 245 is a close-up photograph of the reddish-brown stain next to evidence marker letter B. It is directly below the line in the middle that is the 1 centimeter line.
And I see pointed out on these, on your placards, it also says which room. So this one says family.
That is correct.
I believe we saw one earlier that was B, but it said laundry.
That is correct.
So you use the same letters, but you indicate which room.
We had to because of the number of items of evidence. We would have gotten into double lettering, and for ease of identification, we decided to label them with the numerical marker or the alpha marker for whichever room that we were in.
What does Exhibit 246 show?
Exhibit 246, again, shows the same as the previous. It's a medium shot of the stains that were on the floor.
And I'm not going to have you open these, so up to you if you want to glove up or not. Deputy, I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 249. Is your office's identification sticker also on Exhibit 249?
It is.
And what is Exhibit 249?
Exhibit 249 is 7 swabs that I collected from the floor of the family room, letters B through H.
And how did you take these swabs?
the swabs were collected individually. So a swab is basically a cotton Q-tip with an applicator on one end. It has a wooden shaft. They're approximately 6 inches long. We apply a single drop of sterile water to the tip of the swab, and with the tip of the swab, we place it into whatever material we're attempting to collect onto the tip of that swab. Once we collect that swab, it is then placed into a slide box. Now, a slide box is consistent with that, like a matchbox. It's placed into the slide box, and then it is sealed up.
And does Exhibit 249 also have a sticker from the crime lab?
Yes, it does. It has the M21, which indicates the Madison lab for the year of 2021, and the case number is 1575.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 249 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Deputy, I'll have you look at Exhibit 250. Please describe Exhibit 250.
Exhibit 250 are individual swabs of the stains next to evidence marker letter N and evidence marker letter O. These stains were identified when the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory responded with their field response unit to utilize luminol. Now, luminol is a chemical that we utilize to spray, is a liquid form that we spray onto hard surfaces. And what we're looking for is blood stains that are appear to have been cleaned up, or stains that have been cleaned up but are not visible to the naked eye. Just because a blood stain is wiped from a surface, it doesn't mean it's gone. There could be trace amounts still on that surface, and they will be represented as a fluorescent blue-colored glow when you apply the luminol. Luminol is done in the hours of darkness or when we can make the room completely dark, and it will fluoresce when it reacts with the blood. These two stains are stains that reacted with the blood but were not seen by me when I was doing my examination and found all the other stains.
And specifically, was it Nick Stulke from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab who did the luminol?
Yes, Nick Stulke and his team with John Ertl as an assistant, and the two photographers assisted with the process.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 250 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Oh, sure. Deputy, you're now going to be approached with a blow-up of a photograph. It is Exhibit 556. Could you please identify Exhibit 556?
Again, this is a photograph that I had taken of the fireplace. This shows the fireplace hearth with the alpha number letters, of O and B on the hearth, and then it shows the additional letters that are on the floor.
Does it appear to be a true and accurate depiction of what you observed?
Yes, it is.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 556 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
It is received. It may be published.
Bill, do you just want to maybe walk it in front of the jury so folks over on this side can see? Okay. right, now back to your little screen. Exhibit 251. How would you describe Exhibit 251?
Exhibit 251 is a photograph of an open freezer that was located in the basement. Now, this freezer is against the west wall of the basement, if you will, and it is adjacent to the stairs that descend from the office area.
And this basement, how would you describe the basement in general? Is it one big room, kind of two little rooms, something else?
As you descend down the stairs and you're facing to the east, there's a wall, a cinder block wall that runs down the middle of the basement from east to west. It separates the north side of the basement and the south side of the basement. There's wood framing that extends from the west end of the wall that continues to the west. The cinder block wall at the east end intersects with the foundation of the basement itself.
Exhibit 252.
Exhibit 252 shows the same freezer, and we can see that it is open. To the left of the freezer is a upright freezer. We can see the gray door with the silver handle. Beyond the freezer, there is a rolling baker's rack type shelving that has, for the lack of better terms, the COVID supplies. There's all kinds of supplies on that rack that has been stocked up. And to the right of the image, we can see the cement stairs that ascend up to the office level and family room level.
Exhibit 253. What is it appears in Exhibit 253?
Exhibit 253, we can see inside of the freezer itself. We can see that there is nothing inside of the freezer. We can see that there's indentations in the base of the freezer. We can see in the lower portion of the freezer that is nearest to the photographer, which was myself, a raised white portion for a drain.
And why did you become, obviously you took several pictures of this freezer. Why did you do that?
Quite frankly, it was out of place. It's up against the area where the supplies were, so it was in the way. It also was standing open, which I didn't think was normal. When I discovered this, I was not made aware of this. Again, we talked about briefing and talking with detectives, and information that I had received was that detectives and patrol deputies had previously been to the residence for when Chandler reported his parents missing. And during that time, they were in the house. And I couldn't think for a good reason why somebody would forget to tell me about a freezer that was in the basement. So I placed a phone call to Detective Sims and asked about the freezer, of why that freezer was in the basement, and it was not. She told me it was not there when they were there on their walkthrough. So again, that drew more attention. We have a freezer that it just is out of place. The lid is open, and it was not in that same location when the detectives and deputies were there when the missing persons report was filed.
Obviously, it appears empty in this picture. Was there any food in it that you had to remove?
No, this is the condition that it was in. I also noted that it was very, very clean. I also observed that there was a drain, which we cannot see in this particular image, but looking down inside, it would be the lower left corner of this image. And it appeared to have a liquid-like substance in it.
Exhibit 254. Can you see that drain in Exhibit 254?
Yes, this is a better representation of what I just described. The gray drain for the freezer is located in the lower left portion of this freezer. And we can see that there is not a plug in place on the interior side, and neither was there a plug in place on the exterior.
What, if anything, did you do concerning that drain?
I took a swab of the drain and tested it with phenolphthalein, and I received a presumptive positive with phenolphthalein for the presence of blood. I then followed it with the Hexagon OBTI test. The Hexagon OBTI test, as I explained earlier, is for the presence of human blood, and it indicated that for the presence of human blood that there was human blood present.
So, for example, just to try to explain it, if you had steak that was bloody and went into that drain, that wouldn't result in a positive with your second test.
It absolutely would not.
Human blood is what tests positive.
Correct.
Deputy, I'm approaching you with Exhibit 374. Can you look at Exhibit 374? How would you describe it?
This is a swab of the blood from the freezer drain that I had taken, and this also has been submitted to the state crime laboratory for analysis.
Also has the biohazard sticker?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I would move Exhibit 374 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
All right. Exhibit 255. How would you describe Exhibit 255?
Again, Exhibit 255 is again showing that same freezer. Now we have the reference of the stairs to the right side that ascend up to the office/family room level. We can see the freezer, the chest type freezer that is open, as well as the upright freezer and the north cinder block wall of the basement foundation.
One more question about that chest freezer. Was it plugged in?
No, it was not.
How about the upright freezer? Was it plugged in?
Yes, the upright freezer was plugged in, and when I had opened it, the contents inside of that freezer were cold.
And those contents were food?
There were all kinds of food in there, yes.
Okay. Exhibit 256. How would you describe Exhibit 256?
Exhibit 256 is a photograph of one of the shelves that was behind the freezer, which would have been essentially between the freezer and the west wall of the basement on the south half, if you will. In this photograph, we can see that there's a couple bottles of Tide, a couple bottles of Dawn. There's a brown bottle with a white cap, and I noted that the seal was broken on that cap.
So what'd you do?
I picked it up to determine what it was after photographing it, and it is a empty bottle of hydrogen peroxide.
And I am going to have you open this one, so I don't know if you want a glove and mask up or not, but Could you please look at the stickers on Exhibit 282 when you have a moment? And what do you believe Exhibit 282 is?
Exhibit 282 is the bottle of hydrogen peroxide that I collected from the basement. It was on the south side. It was on the shelf that was previously in the photograph.
Could you please open and visually inspect Exhibit 282? And is that the bottle of peroxide you collected?
Yes, it is.
At this point, I would move Exhibit 282 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Now, why in the world did you collect a bottle of common peroxide?
Well, there's a couple of reasons why I collected the bottle of hydrogen peroxide. Number one is it was out of place. We have a storage shelf that has stored supplies, and they're in great quantities. But there's a empty bottle of hydrogen peroxide that just did not fit. In addition, my experience in working with the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office, I attend autopsies. And one of the products that they utilize to neutralize and clean up blood if they were to get it on some paperwork is hydrogen peroxide.
Does hydrogen peroxide have any smell?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Unlike cleaners such as bleach.
It definitely does not smell like bleach.
Exhibit 257, what do you observe there?
Exhibit 257 is a bottle of hand cleaner, the distilled water, and then it appears to be a void area.
What is Exhibit 258?
This is a photograph of the south wall of the basement on the south side. This is the foundation wall, and there are a series of storage shelves on the north side of that wall. They are the black shelving units, and we can see that they're neatly organized with translucent totes and boxes.
Exhibit 259, what does that display?
Exhibit 259 displays a yellow roll of duct tape that I observed that was on the shelf on top of one of the translucent bins as we see in this photograph.
Exhibit 260.
This is a close-up photograph that I took of the yellow duct tape. We can see here that the cut end of the duct tape is visible.
And again, 261.
Is another photograph of the cut end of the duct tape.
When you're taking all these pictures of the yellow duct tape, were you aware of a garbage bin that was collected for evidence at the Irwin Road property?
Yes, I was.
Were you aware of the fact that some yellow duct tape was found in that garbage bin?
I saw the yellow duct tape inside that bin, and this yellow duct tape, again, it jumped out at me because it was consistent in appearance and color, and I definitely knew that this was an important piece of evidence that needed to be collected.
So did you collect it?
Yes.
I'm going to show you, Deputy, what has been marked as Exhibit 283. How would you describe Exhibit 283?
Exhibit 283 is the yellow roll of duct tape that was collected by myself.
Okay.
It also has crime laboratory markings for the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, item H and H1. What is different about the tape at this point is that the tag end of the tape has been pulled off of the roll and appears to have been affixed to a clear piece of acetate. Now, this would be consistent with something that we would that would be done at the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory when we ask them to do a fracture match. Again, we submit this to the subject matter experts who are trained in making comparisons, and they can take the unknown sample from the garbage bin, if you will, and attempt to fracture match it back to a known standard, and that being this roll of tape that was at the scene.
To put it crudely, they can tell you whether or not it's like two puzzle pieces, whether they fit together or not.
That is a very good explanation of it, yes.
Okay. I would move Exhibit 283 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
What does Exhibit 262 display?
Exhibit 262 is a photograph in the basement. This is a photograph, I believe, of the north wall of the basement. What we see in this photograph is a window that is actually, you can't see the window, it's covered with the towels that have been hung to prevent light coming into the basement.
And did police hang these up when they luminoled, or were these already there when you arrived?
No, we did not. These were already there when we arrived. This is a photograph of how it was when we initially saw the scene.
And Exhibit 263?
This is again a photograph of the window covering. In this photograph, we can see that a blue clamp has been used to cover the window and attached basically the blanket to the floor joist or ceiling supports.
264, could you please describe this image?
264, we can see the west wall of the basement. Now, it's hard to see, but at the very left side, you can see a yellow stripe. Just to the left of that, that would be where the stairs are that ascend up to the office or the family room level. What we see here is the cinder block wall. There's a wood bench that is blue in color. There's a butcher block style workbench top that is in the foreground. To the left of that, we can see a floor safe. We can see a gray tote bin on top of that.
And the floor safe, just to make sure the jury is focused on is on the lower left-hand corner.
Correct. It is the gray safe, and you can see the evidence marker letter C is on that safe.
Exhibit 268, how would you describe Exhibit 268?
Exhibit 268 is a photograph, medium shot of the left side of the workbench. In the far left, we can see the stairs that ascend up to the basement level. We can see there are evidence placards, letter A, B, C, the letter G, and the letter F.
Exhibit 269, please describe that for the jury.
Exhibit 269 is the floor safe with the evidence marker letter C on it. We can see above the letter C and to the right that there are round circles. Those round circles are blood stains. They were observed as reddish-brown stains by Deputy Jim Plenty and myself. Deputy Jim Plenty and I determined that we would collect the stains individually. I sampled a portion of the stain that is above the letter C and tested that with phenolphthalein, and it confirmed that it was present for blood. I again followed with the second and subsequent test, the Hexagon OBTI test. That Hexagon OBTI test was positive for the presence of human blood. The remainder of the stains on that were not tested, they were simply collected.
And why is that?
Because they're in the same general area. Again, we talked about the most probative value in submitting items to the state crime laboratory because of the limitations that we have in submitting items. This is a screening process that we utilize so we can submit the evidence with the best value, and knowing that there was blood on that surface and it was human blood, we did not need to continue testing additional stains. We were confident that additional stains could be sent out and tested by the crime lab.
Do you ever, because of the size of a stain or sample, have to make choices as to which test you do or what you do with the sample?
Absolutely. We can never consume a sample. That means when I do a test with phenolphthalein, I cannot utilize the entire sample because I'm only testing to determine if it's blood. If I utilize that entire sample, there is nothing left to send to the lab. I then have to make that same determination if there's enough sample left to be able to do the Hexagon OBTI test. And doing the Hexagon OBTI test, it simply tells me if it's human or non-human. It does not tell me whose blood it is. Again, I cannot consume that entire sample. There has to be sample remaining to be able to be sent to the crime lab.
Deputy, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 373. Can you please review the labels of Exhibit 373 and tell us what it is?
These are the 7 swabs that I collected from the face of the safe that was in the photographs previously. There's listed as swabs NS, so meaning north side of the basement, and they're swabs C1 through 7.
And is there also a sticker on that, on Exhibit 373 from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab?
Yes, this item was submitted to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab under case number M21-1575, and the item number or letter designation is Y as in young. There are additional stickers that are applied by the crime lab, and they appear to be Y1 through Y7.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 373 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
All right, moving on. Can you please describe Exhibit 270?
Exhibit 270 is a photograph taken in the basement. Again, we're on the north side of the basement. This would be in the northwest corner of the basement. We can see a refrigerator to the right. There is a bicycle in the background. There are alpha markers, the letter D and letter E, that are on the floor.
And what D and E, what are those denoting?
I believe letter E is a bullet fragment.
showing you Exhibit 272. What does Exhibit 272 show?
Exhibit 272, we can see a gray piece of metal that has staining on it. And when we look at this, we can see that there's no uniformity to it. It is consistent with a projectile.
Projectile. Is that a fancy word for bullet?
But that is the portion of the bullet. The bullet is made up of the casing, powder, a primer, and then the projectile itself that is propelled from the firearm. So this is a bullet from a firearm.
Down towards the bottom right, is there anything, an
Yes,
additional metal
it's on
fragment?
the edge of the screen. There's an additional small fragment.
Okay. So there was 2 metal fragments.
That is correct.
Deputy, I'm now going to show you Exhibits 285 and 286. I'm actually probably going to have you open these up. So just while you're gloving up, what is the label of Exhibit 285 seem to be per your office's label?
The Exhibit 285 is a metal fragment from the basement floor that was next to evidence marker letter E. It is under evidence ID number 41873. This also was submitted to the Wisconsin State Laboratory, Crime Laboratory. It has their case number with the evidence subdesignator that they utilize of L and L2.
All right, and I'll have you, and it also has a biohazard sticker.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Ask you to open up Exhibit 285. This time I'd move Exhibit 285 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Could you walk it slowly in front of the jury, please, so they can observe it? Exhibit 285. If you want to place it back in the box. I'll give you a chance to change your gloves and all. And what is Exhibit 286 according to the label from your department?
Exhibit 286 is the metal fragment from the basement floor that was found near evidence marker letter E. It is affixed with evidence ID number 41874.
And does it also have Wisconsin State Crime Lab stickers?
Yes, it does. It has the State Crime Lab case number, as well as a subdesignator letter M as in Mary.
I'd ask that you open it up at this time. And I would move Exhibit 286 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received, and it may be published.
And it appears to be in what I would describe as a small test tube. Is that fair, or what would you call it?
It's like a small plastic cup.
Okay. Could you please walk that by the jury? And Deputy, as you package that up, when you discovered 285 and 286, did you know that they were part of a projectile or bullet?
At that point, I did not know they were. They were consistent in appearance with that of a projectile. But again, we submit them to the state crime laboratory to their subject matter experts for further evaluation.
Exhibit 273, what are we observing?
I'm sorry, you said 273?
Yes, I believe that's
Okay.
the...
Exhibit 273 is a photograph that was taken of the workbench. And in this photograph, we can see on the bottom left portion, a portion of that floor safe and that tote bin that we previously saw in the overall image that when we were looking to the west. We can see a blue bench and on the shelf of the bench, there is a spent fire extinguisher.
Judge, this might be a good time to take a break. The next couple of slides are going to involve a lot of exhibits.
I see no reason to disagree. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take 10 minutes at this point in time. Randy? Okay, good, thank you. Then go ahead and continue, Attorney Raymond.
Thank you. In Exhibit 274, what is the jury seeing in Exhibit 274?
Exhibit 274 is a photograph of a spent cartridge shell that was located on the floor under the blue workbench. It would have been located closest to the west wall of the basement and at the south end of the workbench, which is the end closest to the stairs and that floor safe.
And just for those that are not super familiar with firearms, what is a casing?
A casing is the metal component that is hollow and has gunpowder within it. If we look at the round cylinder end of this particular casing, you can see there's a light colored yellow insert around the green metal portion of the casing. That is the primer end of the casing. The projectile is attached to the opposite end and is usually crimped to create a seal. The primer from the firing pin from the firearm will strike the primer end. Again, that primer end is that light yellow colored disc with inside of the green metal surrounding it. When it strikes the primer, it creates an explosion and ignites the gunpowder within inside of the bullet. The pressure within inside of the capsule, because it's sealed, forces the projectile out of the out of the casing down the barrel of the firearm. And that's essentially how it works.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to show Exhibit 275. What are we seeing on Exhibit 275?
Again, this is another photograph of the same projectile that was located on the floor in the basement. Again, we can see that inner disc that is a lighter yellow color or gold color, and then there's a darker green casing for the casing itself. This casing was actually located on the basement floor by crime scene investigator James Plenty, who then called to my attention that he had found something. And then I came down and assisted him in the basement with taking these photographs.
Might have just had it on there accidentally. I think it's just 284. Yes, okay. So Deputy, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 284. How would you describe Exhibit 284?
Exhibit 284 is the casing that was collected by myself. There's the casing that was in the previous photograph that was on the floor under the workbench. It has a alpha marker letter G. Letter G was one of the placards that we seen in a previous image of the overall images, and it was yellow in color. It is affixed with evidence ID number 41877 that I applied. It's a sheriff's office evidence barcode number. It also has the Wisconsin State Crime Lab case number that's the same as previously mentioned, and they sub-designated this item of evidence as letter AH.
This time I would move Exhibit 284 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And Deputy, I'm also going to give you Exhibit 26. This is a bullet given to Mitchell Halderson by the defendant. I'd ask you just to just look at those both, 284 and Exhibit 26. And I'd ask if you see any similarities between the items.
They are similar in color. I also know that the head stamp is the same. Now, the head stamp is the manufacturer's stamping that is on the head or the primer end of the casing. It's not on the primer, it's on the casing, so it's not on the yellow portion of the disc, it's on the green portion of the metal casing. When I first saw this casing that was in the basement, I'm looking for the name of a manufacturer. A lot of times the manufacturers will put their initials, or they may even put the full name of the company that manufactures them. This particular company did not. This particular company put a logo on there, and knowing that this type of casing is consistent with a cartridge that would be used for a AK-47 or an SKS type rifle. I was wondering if it was maybe some type of imported ammunition from another country, and that's what I was trying to decipher. I later learned that the writing that is on the crown of the head stamp is for a company named Barnaul. I also observed that on the head stamp along the lower arch of that round casing, the number is 7.62 by 39, and that is the same head stamp that is on the exhibit number 26, Sheriff's Office ID number 417, which is ammunition from M. Halderson. This particular piece of evidence, as we look in comparison to the casing of the one that was found within the basement, it is just the casing. And if we look at the one that is marked as Exhibit 26, it has a copper-colored projectile that is still intact. It also has a primer in it, and that primer is not dented, indicating that this is a complete round and it has not been fired.
So Exhibit 26, not fired. Exhibit 284, a fired casing.
Yes, a fired casing, also referred to sometimes as a spent shell casing.
And I'm going to leave these two up here. We have more ammunition we're going to compare in a minute. Deputy, how would you describe Exhibit 276?
Looking at Exhibit 276, we're facing to the east. This is on the north side of the basement, or the north half of the basement. We see that there's a wooden bookshelf, the natural wood color to the right. There's a safe that is black with a silver face next to it. We can see that there's a plastic table, and then there are two folding chairs that are folded in the chair position, and there are two additional chairs on the left side of that image. If we look at the concrete type floor. The concrete floor, as well as the walls in the basement, are painted in a gray type paint. We can see that there is a defect on the floor that is on the photographer's side, or the near side of the chair that is to the right in this image. The defect is a white, in this image appears to be a round or elliptical type defect.
Exhibit 277.
Exhibit 277 is a medium shot of that same defect in the concrete floor.
Exhibit 278.
Exhibit 278 is the same defect. This time we've added evidence marker letter H to it. We can see that when we get closer with the imagery that there is some depth to the defect, and it is not uniform in its edges are jagged.
And why is this defect interesting to you?
There were other defects on the floor, but this defect was interesting because it was absent of grime. Now, I can't say that it's fresh, but I can tell you it is not aged like the other defects that were on the floor. It doesn't have dirt or debris within that defect like the other defects had. It's not uncommon for a basement floor to have scratches or gouges, but this one, it stood out, and it still had like a powder, like busted concrete texture within the defect itself.
547, what are we looking at in 547?
In 547, we're looking at the floor on the south half of the basement. We are on the west side of the basement facing to the east. We see evidence markers letter F, and we see evidence markers letter G. Now, if we look, you can see that the basement floor doesn't look the same as in the original images that we had taken. This photograph was taken after the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory Field Response Unit came out to assist us. It consisted again of Nick Stahlke, John Ertl, and the two photographers that came out to do the luminol. And what you see here is the residue, the white residue that is left behind when luminol is sprayed onto the hard surface. I further say that letter F and letter G are areas that fluoresced or luminesced that we collected swabs from the concrete floor.
Which brings us to Exhibit 287. Deputy, could you please look at the labels on Exhibit 287 and describe what 287 is?
287 are 3 swabs from the south side of the basement area, G, F, and F. The Sheriff's Office barcode number is 41884, and it also has Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory case number with subdesignations of AB, AB1, AB2, and AB3. Now, in the image I told you, there were 2 areas that were collected. The area F was swabbed twice, so 2 swabs were taken from area F, and they were collected separately.
I would move 287 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
How would you describe Exhibit 292?
I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Was that 292?
Yes.
Exhibit 292 is a photograph that I took of the basement. Again, this is in the south side of the basement. It is in the southwest corner. As we see now, the freezer has been removed and collected as evidence. It is no longer in front of the wire rack rolling storage unit that has the supplies on it. We can see the left side of the photograph. There's the gray door with the silver handle for the upright vertical freezer. There's a shop vac that is on the floor. And then we can see that there's an area that protrudes north of the foundation itself. That would be the area below the front steps that would be commonly referred to as a stoop. And in some instances, in home construction, they get filled in. In other instances, they get capped off and they can be used as additional storage areas.
Exhibit 293.
Exhibit 293 is a photograph of the it's on the south side of the basement. It is the southwest corner. We can see the cinder block wall, and then we can see above the cinder block wall, there are silver pipes. Those silver pipes are conduit that contain electrical wires within it. You can see the junction box that is affixed to the cinder block wall. We can see that there are a couple pieces of wood that are attached to the wall, and the area above the cinder block has a wood construction creating a wall above the cinder block. You can see.
Oops, sorry.
You can see that there's the gray paper-like material. It's got some red writing on it. That is the paper side of the insulation that was placed inside of that cavity. The area that is between the 2x4 studs and it's for insulation purposes.
Exhibit 294.
Is just another photograph of that same area. Again, we can see the red markings for the insulation.
And what does Exhibit 295 display?
Exhibit 295 is an area of the cavity that is exposed once the insulation is removed from the studs. And when we look in the lower portion of that image, we can see that steel pipe, and then beyond it, there are some black triangular looking pieces. Those pieces are consistent with a mouthpiece that would be used on a vape type instrument, which is an instrument that a person sometimes uses if they're a smoker to mimic cigarettes.
And was this vape mouthpiece out in the open like this, or was it behind the insulation?
It could not be seen. It was concealed within that cavity, and it was covered with the insulation.
Upon learning that, did you guys then remove more insulation in the area?
We removed all the insulation in the basement after seeing that. There was an indicator that somebody was hiding something in the basement. Those were put there purposely. They're not left there by accident.
Exhibit 296.
Exhibit 296, we can see in the bottom left portion those same vape mouthpieces. However, as I pulled back more of the insulation and exposed the cavity created by the 2x4 walls, you can see the magazine from a firearm that also contains bullets. The magazines are concealed within the wall and hidden with the insulation covering them, so they could not be seen unless the insulation was removed from the wall.
So the magazines were hidden behind the insulation.
Correct. They could not be seen without removing the insulation. And the insulation was put back into place as it really did not look out of place. But during our extensive search, I decided to pull back insulation and dig a little bit deeper and a little bit further, and this is what I found.
And obviously by magazine, you don't mean Sports Illustrated. What's a magazine for people that are not gun users?
So a magazine is part of the firearm. Not every firearm has them, but on some firearms that are semi-automatic, they have a storage container that is called a magazine. The bullets are pushed into the magazine from the top, and when you see the bullets, that is the top of the magazine. As you push the next round in, they compress a spring that is at the base. And the magazines have different capacities. These magazines hold multiple rounds of ammunition. That magazine is then placed into the firearm, and then the spring will feed the firearm and force additional ammunition into the chamber of that firearm as it cycles each time the trigger is pulled.
What do you observe in Exhibit 297?
Exhibit 297 is after I pulled the insulation from the wall, I stepped back and took an overall photograph. This is for reference, so a person who was not there can understand where within the basement those were located.
How would you describe Exhibit 298?
Exhibit 298 is a close-up of the 3 magazines that I located concealed within the basement wall. The magazines are of a polymer or plastic-like material, and there are 3 of them. I collected each of them. One of them listed as the front, which is the one closest in the image. One listed as top, which is the one in the highest portion of this image, and then one listed as bottom, which is the one that's leaning over on the far right side of this image.
Exhibit 299, how would you describe Exhibit 299?
Exhibit 299 is when I completely removed all of the insulation. Again, this photograph is to show the condition in which they were found and in relation to the vape mouthpieces that were located It's again, just a reference.
Exhibit 300.
Again, this is another perspective allowing a better view of the third magazine, the one that's listed as bottom. In each one of these magazines, we can see that there are bullets in each of those magazines.
And 301. Just another perspective view.
Again, it's just another reference photograph so that the viewer can have a understanding as to where they were located within the basement.
And same for 135?
Correct. It's an
Or, sorry, 302.
The 302 is a overview, again, showing in relation to the storage shelf and the magazines.
Deputy, I'm going to approach you now with exhibits 288, 289, and 290. And I'm going to have you describe the labels on exhibit 288 first.
Exhibit 288 is the magazine that was listed as the front with ammo. It's got evidence ID number 42258 affixed to it.
I would move at this time exhibit 288 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
I'd ask that you open it up, and I'm actually going to have you count the amount of rounds in that magazine. Yes, thank you. Will you just hold it up for the jury? All right, now if you would count the rounds, sir.
So rounds have been removed.
Okay. It's okay, they don't have to be standing up, just count the amount.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
20, okay. And that was exhibit 288. If you would return the rounds and magazine to the box. And I'm going to have you repeat the same procedure with item 290.
Item 290 is the rifle magazine listed as bottom with ammo that I collected from the wall.
Okay, I would move Exhibit 290 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And again, I would ask that you count the bullets. No need to display them if you just want to count them.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
All right, thank you. If you want to return those items to the bag, to the box. And finally, I'd like you to repeat the same procedure with item 289. And what does the label from your department say for 289?
Exhibit 289 is a rifle mag, top with ammo, evidence ID number 42259. This is a magazine which I collected that was concealed within the wall.
All right, I would move 289 into evidence at this time.
No objection.
It is received.
And again, yes, please count the rounds.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
So only 15 rounds in Exhibit 289.
That is correct.
So missing 5 rounds as compared to the other 2 magazines.
Yes.
Okay. Now, but maybe before you close that, the bullets in all 3 of these magazines, is their ammunition consistent with each other?
Yes, and looking at the head stamp on the ammunition, they're all the same color, the same caliber, 7.62 by 39, and they all have the same head stamp from the manufacturer that is the logo for Bernal.
And is that the same head stamp that you identified in the Get Well bullet as well as the casing found on the basement floor?
I don't recall which one was a Get Well bullet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Exhibit 26.
Yes, they are all the same.
Okay. This one just says "Get Well" written in Sharpie on it. So all of the ammunition that is displayed up here is all the same caliber, all the same head stamp.
That is correct.
Anything else? No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, thank you. Deputy, approximately how many hours did you spend processing this place?
I would suggest over the 3-week period, it was roughly 10 to 12 hours a day. Not working every day. We did have a couple days off in there.
So the pictures that were shown to the jury today, were those all taken in the same day or in different days?
They were taken in different dates. They were not taken all at the exact same time, no.
Now, as far as you being at that home, is this your first time that you were in the Halderson household?
In reference to this investigation, yes. I'd never previously been at that residence.
So you mentioned multiple times that the way you photographed things that day was how it was when you got there, correct?
Correct.
Nothing.
When I entered under the guise of the search warrant, we photographed the entire interior of the residence, how we found it. And again, I talked earlier about wearing booties and the cross-contamination. You just cannot get past that. But nothing else was moved when the initial photographs are taken. And when we walk through and we're taking our notes, and I talk about that golden hour with Deputy Plenty, we're not moving or touching anything. We're simply looking.
And along those lines, would you agree with me that your role is primarily to take in the scene, not necessarily analyze the scene? Does that make sense?
I would disagree because my role as a crime scene investigator differs from a detective. When I'm at the scene, I'm trying to read what the scene is saying. I'm trying to interpret what the scene is saying. The detective, they get verbals. They talk to their witnesses, their victims, their suspects, and they are able to communicate verbally. I have to interpret what has been left for me. I have to try and essentially analyze, for lack of a better term, what is there and what isn't there.
So along those lines as well, are you the individual that gets to determine what is of evidentiary value and what is not of evidentiary value?
I'm one of the people, yes, I am.
And I believe in this particular location, it would be you and Deputy Plenty.
That is correct. Now, and additionally, we do our investigation and we're making a evaluation as we're doing it, and we're identifying what needs to be done to the scene, okay? That first evaluation, what additional resources are we gonna need? Are we gonna need help from other agencies, be it the State Crime Laboratory Field Response, the ATF, DCI's State Fire Marshal's Office? All of that is going in taking place. Once we sequence what is going to happen, we roll out our plan. Now that changes and things happen that allow us to continue, and then there's roadblocks that we have to stop and change our direction, our course of attack, if you will, on processing this scene. Once that is all done, again, we talked about that communication with the detectives and having an understanding as to what's taking place outside of the crime scene. I don't know everything that has taken place. I don't know every interview that is being conducted. So what we do then is, once we're done with the processing of all of the evidence that we find forensically, we then bring the detectives into the scene and they do a wall-to-wall search. And during that wall-to-wall search, they're looking for additional documents that they might have an understanding that has relevance to the case that I would have no knowledge of, because I'm not the one out doing the interviews. So this is a team approach, and we need the detectives to give us information, we give the detectives information, and then we have them come in and we release the scene to the detectives so they can do their wall-to-wall search for additional things that we may have not had any knowledge that may or may not have been important.
So in conjunction with you and the crime scene team, along with the detectives, it's fair to say that this house was very thoroughly processed.
Yes, I referred to the search when the walkthrough was conducted with the district attorney's office. I used a term that when we get done with the search, when we're done with a tornado search, we'll find everything. And the district attorney looked at me and wondered what tornado search was, and I told them that we will turn the house upside down looking for whatever piece of evidence is in here that would have any value to this case. And that's what we did.
And the DA has placed all of the exhibits that they've presented to you in that corner. That's not even half of the exhibits or of the evidence that was collected in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And when we're talking about exhibits and evidence, we're not only talking about anything that could contain blood, we're talking about digital evidence such as flash drives, anything like that this house had, you would have collected and processed.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, going into the blood evidence that you had talked about in direct examination, you essentially performed two types of tests, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the first one was just to see if there was a presence of blood. Is that correct?
That is correct. That would be the phenolphthalein test that detects just simply the presence of blood.
And then that second one was that Hexagon OBDI or OBTI test.
That is correct. The Hexagon OBTI, that differentiates between human blood and non-human blood.
The tests that were performed on this blood initially from you, they cannot tell you when that blood was placed on that location, correct?
No, they cannot.
And I think you might have mentioned this in direct examination, but I'll say it again. It cannot tell you, these tests cannot tell you whose blood that is.
No, that is that's the screening process that we utilize, again, to get the best probative value for the evidence that we're allowed to submit to the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory. And that's when the DNA evaluation and testing is conducted at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. That is not something that is done in-house by any sheriff's office in Wisconsin.
And along those lines, those two tests that you performed on the blood, they cannot tell you how it was that the blood was placed there.
No, they cannot.
Same with the physical evidence that you recovered. So for example, we spent some time talking about metal fragments that were located in the basement. Do you recall those?
Yes, I do.
Now, you're able to determine that they're metal fragments, correct?
That is correct.
And maybe you're able to determine that they're, I think you refer to them as projectiles.
Consistent with the lead fragment of a projectile, yes.
But a thorough, conclusive saying that this metal fragment is a projectile, that's not something that you would be able to do, correct?
No, that would again go to a subject matter expert at the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in the firearms section.
And again, as far as you're concerned, you cannot tell us when those metal fragments were placed there, correct?
No, I cannot.
And generally, you cannot tell us how they were placed there.
No, I cannot do that either, no.
And that goes with any kind of physical evidence that you recovered at the household, correct?
Could you ask the question again?
Sure, yeah. So I specifically talked about the metal fragments, but
Yep.
as far as any kind of physical evidence that you collected, you aren't able to tell the jury or anyone how it was placed there, correct?
In respect to the metal fragments or any evidence?
Any evidence?
That is not correct.
So there's some evidence that you are able to say how it was placed there.
Correct.
Could you give me an example?
The bloodstain patterns.
And when we're talking about the bloodstain patterns, that's quite literally the pattern, not how the blood was placed there, just the pattern, correct?
Correct. Well, the pattern will tell us basically how it was applied. So when we look at the face of the safe and we see the stains that are on the face of the safe, they're pretty much round, and they're small. And that tells us that those stains impacted on that safe at a 90 or near 90-degree angle. So the face of the safe is a horizontal surface. So the blood is deposited onto the face of the safe at a 90-degree angle.
But again, you do not know when it was placed there.
I cannot say that, no.
I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you.
Any redirect?
One brief question. The jury previously, and counsel, I think, mentioned some of the photos. The video that Scott Coons, the slow walkthrough of the property, was that done before or after photos being taken?
I cannot recall exactly the time. It was on this same day, but I do not recall if that was prior to or after.
Sure. Was it done before any items were moved?
Nothing was moved.
Okay. That's it?
May this deputy be excused
May.
and released? Or no? Not released, but excused. Are there any, well, I know we should get the, I will ask him to, with your assistance, to box up the
Absolutely.
exhibits that are there before we proceed to the next witness. Thank you, sir.